My name is Georgina Groocock and I'm an artist. My background is pretty generic. I come from a loving family in the middle of England, and I've been painting all my life, painting and drawing. It was something I loved to do as a child, and I kept on doing it. I had the option to do it for education, but I dropped it at AS level because I didn't like to be told what to paint. Sometimes I regret that choice. I think I had a lot more to learn from an early age. And now I'm older and have done more, gone back to education in some cases and picked it up where I could. I do wish it would have been an interesting life to follow if I'd kept on that path originally. But you need to do what makes sense for you at the time, and that's what I did, and that's the path I went down. Right now, I'm very lucky. I'm in a paid job which supports me doing art on the side, and so I can do the art I love without having to be scared about meeting the bills. I am very lucky to be married to a wonderful man who is an officer in the army, so that informs my work quite a lot at the moment, because I feel like it's a bit of a hidden world to anyone else. The way that we have to live and the way that the world forms around us as a military family is pretty unusual. So at the moment in particular, I'm really embracing that side of my life, and it's coming through into my art. Otherwise, I think, I've been very lucky and very blessed. I haven't had much hardship. I took classics at university, so had a real history interest and stories and narratives. And that also, that comes through in what I try and paint. I like painting people, and I like painting flowers. I like trying to capture a moment and capture a light, but also tell sort of a wider story behind it, a character study when I can. So, and that comes through, I'd like to think, in what I do. So that's led me more towards portraiture in general, with a sort of a side dish of botanical when I need a break from people. It's really a meditative cycle I go through, where I go to look at people and see what I can see through them. And then when I have, got to the hilt of what I can take looking at faces, I fly back to flowers, and I sort of look for more peace and more sense and stability and moments with the flowers and the botanicals. So it's a very fun cycle that I go through. My influences, the biggest influences. So I'm influenced every day and every week. I use Instagram quite heavily for sourcing new artists out there. I try and find new people doing new stuff to see what's coming out. And there are extremes. There are those artists making big waves and big changes in the art scenes and have been doing for years. And then there's the people who are doing smaller exhibitions or just work for their own personal joy. And I try and, through the tags I follow and the people I follow, I try and get a bit of exposure to each end. So I'm not just looking at the greatest from history and from contemporary, but also looking at what everyone else is creating. And that's really inspiring, and it gives you a lot of idea about how people are evolving and changing today, especially with the use of technology and the learning that's available through that technology at the moment. To give you an idea of my art and the influence that comes through into my art, specifically, I with the portraiture side, I love the John Singer Sargent, the way that he captures the people and his style, which is so strong in many contemporary artists nowadays, is something I follow. There's actually a couple of artists, Francis Bell and a few others that I follow intently, thanks to the Royal Portrait Society, and that they can sort of take that style and take it to the next level, both in its sort of breezy capture of a person to the more intense storytelling side that can evolve out of that. And so I look to both of those, but then as I say, I look to sort of what people are posting for the love of it, and that's great. Right now, what I'm focusing on is actually coming back to the military side that I mentioned earlier. It's a series that I'm calling the Daffodil Children. Sorry, that's me staring at the wrong picture. What I'm focusing on right now is actually going back to the military side, and that's looking both as a military dependent, but also with my children and the impact that has on my children. So I'm working on a series right now, which is I'm calling the dandelion series, which the dandelion as a flower is actually a representation of military children because of the way that we have to move around so much. We move around every couple of years and get to new places to explore and put roots down in. So the dandelion being one of the flowers which survives wherever you put it and thrives. It's a message that I'm trying to take with my kids to sort of show them that moving around doesn't stop us from putting our roots down and showing our best side. So there's a series very much focused on them at the moment, which explores like the life of solo parenting, or the sort of incorporating the flowers into the pictures a bit more with the people, and it's a series I'm very excited to show, but I'm only about halfway through that now. But yeah, that's where I am right now. The biggest challenge of being an artist. So I'm very lucky. I think people who are doing art for their bills, there's some who are doing well at that, and utilizing the medias that are out there to help them, and the printmaking, and they do fantastic stuff. I'm lucky in that I have a sort of everyday man job on the side, not quite on the side, but I have a job which pays my bills. So the traditional challenges that I really can't get my head around, such as the self-promotion, the searching for people who will show your art, working with the galleries, working with the exhibitions, putting those stuff on and funding that. I've done that in the past, and it is a great challenge. I don't promote myself very well. I do it for the love of painting, and I think if I were, put into that world, I would find that the biggest challenge. Luckily, right now it's very much for the love of painting that I get to do this, and because I have something I want to say. So my biggest challenge is, I think, something everyone can appreciate, which is time, finding the time to focus, finding the time to get lost in the painting, and rotating between paintings because of drying times as well. So there's a couple of different challenges from different aspects there. The advice I'd give to my younger self now, I don't think I would give myself too much advice. I think the journey I went on was the journey I needed to go on. Maybe the one I would pick is don't be afraid of that blank page. Don't be afraid of wasting the paper or wasting the paint. I use paint quite conservatively now, and I'm happy with that in my style. I see people, especially expressionate artists, who are just throwing the paint around and it's going everywhere, and that's great. I'm excited to try that style. I every so often I go in and give it a go, but I think there's a lot of my younger self here, like resisting wasting this material that I was gifted from loving relatives, or had to try and purchase myself with no money. And I think there's a bit of like, don't be afraid to just give it a go every now and then, and throw the paint on the wall or on the floor, and just be a little bit more loose, because there will always be more paper. There will always be more paint. You might have to go for cheaper paints or cheaper paper, but just do it. Don't be afraid. Have you tried any unconventional mediums or techniques? I have. I'm not a very unconventional painter. I'm very, I don't like to be called a conventional painter, but I think that's probably where I fall. But I force myself to experiment every so often. I was very lucky. I did a part-time degree with the International Design Institute, where they forced us to try different things, a lot more mark making, a little more just approaching things from different ways, looking at digital as well as traditional methods. And so I know and appreciate where that comes from and what I'm doing there. Moving into oils was significant change for me. For a long time I was acrylic, and then I moved to oils, and it opened up a whole different world to me with glazes and with mediums, and that has significantly changed the way I paint. So that's been brilliant. And I would love to go and every so often I try and do a bit more expressive. I try to do a little bit more step away from the detail, put a little bit more raw emotion into it. It's not natural for me, so it's always a challenge. And I'm not yet producing anything I like from that style. But it's important to keep going. And I think there's bits of it that come through in the more, less loose style that I use normally. And there's a little bit less fear of colour, a little bit less fear of the dark, which is coming through in my current work. So it's helping, but it's not its own thing yet. Depending on the painting I'm doing, I could paint in silence, but it's not often I do that. I do vary between stories and music. I had a piece I was working on at the moment where I've got an LP player actually in my studio, and so I've got a load of records that I play as I am painting. And one painting recently, I just got very, very into Florence and the Machine, and in Lungs. And there's one side of that LP that got played so much, it actually warped slightly. So sometimes it's the music that I need, and that informs the piece as I'm painting. It definitely changes the way I'm painting slightly. When I'm doing something a bit more contemplative, then it might require a little bit more of a gentle music or audiobooks and podcasts. I look at some of my past pieces and sections of those paintings really strongly bring back the stories I was listening to as I was painting them, which is really surreal. I can remember exactly what was happening in that book at that time because I spent so long on that bit, and it's sort of ingrained in my head. And I think there's a thing about memory where when you engage in two pathways for a memory, both listening and visual, it goes in stronger. And that's basically what's happening in my head. My paintings and these stories are intertwined. I'm not sure how much of that comes through to the viewer. Hopefully not all of it based on stuff I listen to, but it is fascinating for me. As a portrait artist, I have the privilege of painting people now who are around there. I get commissions every so often, lots of pencil sketch commissions, quite a lot of children. And so, and that's wonderful. It's a really lovely thing to do. It's so nice to be able to capture that special moment in their lives for the people who love them. And I love doing them. I'm always on the lookout for more. But as a result, obviously, you get some amazing reactions, people who are just so thrilled to see their babies in a way that they can put in a frame and put on a wall. And I've seen reaction videos from grandparents opening these and just exclaiming in delight. I've seen people proudly putting up these paintings on their walls and sending me pictures and tags in social media when that comes through is really, really great. It's just nice to see that the paintings are loved. They're a bit, they are my babies. And like with any baby, sending them out into the world, it's so good to know that they're going somewhere they're loved. What do I hope people take away from my artwork? That's a tricky question, because the experience of art is individual. What people see when they see my art, or what they feel when they see my art, it'll differ depending on what the piece is, and whether it was a commissioned piece versus whether it's something I've created and they're reacting to. The series I'm doing at the moment around the military families, military children specifically, I hope that I'm getting a little bit of my life across to people, and they can sort of relate better to me and to those in my situation, both with the optimism I'm trying to paint, but also that sort of sense of loneliness and longing that sometimes comes across. But mainly, for a lot of what I paint, I hope people just experience delight and joy and peace, because what's better than spreading delight and joy and peace into the world right now? If you are listening to this or watching this, then hopefully I'll have my handles posted in the comments or somewhere that you can see on Instagram, mainly Instagram and Facebook. I am terrible at self-promotion, so my website went out of commission years ago and I've never really got it working again. But please do follow me. If I'm doing anything, I'll post it on the medias. Send me some love, because it's always nice to know you're being heard. If I'm doing anything, I will put it on there. And if you want to get in touch more about my art in general, DM me. I'm always happy to talk about it and see what you think. And also, thank you very much for Art for Artists for giving me the opportunity to voice my world. I hope it's been interesting for anyone who's listened. Thank you very much.